Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my love of audiobooks, including my absolute favorite narrators, favorite books, and favorite ways to listen. Alright guys, so I've noticed recently I've been getting a lot of requests to make an audiobook video. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite narrators, my favorite audiobooks, and then also the best place to listen to audiobooks. There are a lot of options out there, and then also just my audiobook reading journey. So I am so excited. Audiobooks are my primary way that I read books, so I'm very excited just to talk about this with you. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about audiobooks. Starting off on where to listen, so you actually have a lot of options when it comes to listening to audiobooks, and they really range in price. The most common is definitely Audible by Amazon. If you're unfamiliar with how Audible works, you pay a set price per month. I believe it's around $15, and that gives you 1 credit. And with that credit, you're able to buy any book in the Audible library, and they have a ton, pretty much any audiobook you could possibly imagine. And after you spend that credit, you actually own that audiobook. So that's what makes this different than the other audio apps. And the benefit of Audible is that if you were to cancel Audible, you would still own that audiobook and be able to listen to it. Now, the downside is Audible is pretty expensive. You can buy more credits for, I believe, a little over $12, but still it is one of the pricier options. So another one that a lot of people use is Scribd, and Scribd is monthly. I believe it's $20 or $25, and you have access to all of their audiobooks, and they say it's unlimited. However, I don't believe that's actually the case. I typically find that after I listen to 5 audiobooks on Scribd, my selection drastically decreases, and all of the books say they'll be available on a specific date, and that specific date is normally the next billing cycle. So that is the downside of Scribd. However, if you're not listening to a ton of books a month, that is definitely an amazing option. Unfortunately, unlike Audible, you aren't able to keep those books. So if you were to cancel Scribd, I don't believe you can go back and listen to books that you already listened to. So then we have some free options. So Hoopla and Libby are attached to your public library, and as far as I know, they are completely free. Now, the downside to Hoopla and Libby is, one, you have to wait for your books to become available, and you also have to read the books within a certain time period. So sometimes people will end up getting 4 books at once and only have like 2 weeks to read them. So that is kind of the downside. However, you cannot beat the price. So highly recommend, if you're looking for a free option and are just starting to get into audiobooks, definitely check out Hoopla and Libby. And then another app that I have used is AnyPlay. So the only downside with AnyPlay, it is very similar to Scribd. You pay a set price a month and you're able to listen to any books in their audio library. But at the time of filming this, or the last time I tried AnyPlay, you could not up the speed past 2.5, and I typically listen to my audiobooks around 3 times speed. So that is a downside. I also had a lot of issues with that app crashing on my phone. That might have been user error on my part, but I do know a few other people that have had technical issues with AnyPlay. But yeah, so those are the main ones. I primarily use Audible. So a while ago, Audible used to have these giant sales. And since, I guess, last year, they've really cut down on the amount of them. But these sales would have audiobooks for $1 or $2. So I would buy hundreds of titles and then just listen to those books throughout the year. Well, Audible just had their most recent sale, and it was not nearly as good, unfortunately. So yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer, but mostly I use Audible, and then occasionally I'll pop on Scribd. And for those of you who already subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, you can actually use WhisperSync, which I recently discovered, and it has changed my life. So if you download a Kindle Unlimited book and there is an audio version, you can normally buy that audio version at a steep discount, normally around $7 or $8. So that is something you should definitely take advantage of. I'll kind of leave like step-by-step directions down in the description below so you have a better idea of how that works. But that is absolutely huge if you already subscribe to KU. And next up is audiobook narrators. So I want to start off by saying I have so much respect for audiobook narrators. It is almost an impossible task to ask somebody to read a book and essentially bring that story to life. And there's so many amazing audiobook narrators out there that are able to do that, and just so much love goes out to them. but I definitely have a video where I talk about like my top audiobook narrators that I'll leave in the cards and the description. However, it's been about a year since I filmed that, so my top narrators have changed. So I'm going to talk about my favorite 3. The first 2 are romance narrators, and they are God tier. They are so good, and that is Joe Arden and Ted Hamilton. Both of them are just phenomenal. The way they do their spicy scenes, but also just emotional moments. Joe Arden specifically, like when I was rereading the Ravenhood series, Exodus, his voice is just, it was so full of emotion and it just makes you want to cry, and they're both so amazingly talented. And then the other one I want to point out is Jennifer Ikeda, and she is the original narrator for A Court of Thorns and Roses. And when I was first reading ACOTAR, I was listening along with the audiobook, and that audiobook is just nostalgic. Like when I am reading quotes from ACOTAR, I hear the quotes in Jennifer Ikeda's voice, and I just think she is so underrated, and everyone talks about the full cast recording of ACOTAR, and no one really gives credit to the original, because the original was just so good and elicited so many emotions, and it's just absolutely amazing. So definitely, I would listen to the graphic audio of ACOTAR, but if you get a chance on your reread, listen to the original narrator, because she does such a phenomenal job. And next up are my favorite audiobooks. So while I was curating this list, I realized that there are certain elements that really make audiobooks stand out to me. So one of them is accents, and the other one is emotion, or the ability to elicit emotion. So first up, Off Balance by Lucia Franco. It is one of my favorite age gap books, and the audio for this is absolutely amazing. And that is because the love interest has a very thick Russian accent, and he actually speaks in Russian for a decent amount of that series. And the narrator killed it. They did such a good job. I absolutely loved it. Similar Devil of Dublin, or Devil in Dublin, the love interest has a very thick Irish accent, and I felt like I was in Ireland when I was listening to that narrator speak. They just did such an amazing job. Now, when I say elicit emotion, I immediately think of Joe Arden and Exodus. So I can't really describe what happens in Exodus, but Joe Arden's performance in that book is outstanding. I have now read that specific book 3 times, and I have wept every single time because of the way Joe Arden is able to make a scene so unbelievably emotional. So that is another series that I highly recommend. It is one of my favorite audiobooks. And yeah, just anything like that. I'll actually put a list of some of my favorites down in the description below, just because they're not coming to me right now, but I know I have other ones that are just so stand out. But also, any book that is narrated by Joe Arden, Ted Hamilton, Jennifer Ikeda, Amanda Lee Hobb, any of those narrators, I typically love their audiobooks. And last up is going to be my audiobook routine. So I've received a lot of questions on how quickly I listen to audiobooks, how do I stay focused, and things of that nature. So I figured this will just be like my audiobook reader journey. So typically I start off listening to audiobooks at 2 times speed, and then I adjust from there. So if it is a contemporary or dark romance, I normally go up to 3 to 3.5 speed. If it is a fantasy romance, I normally stay around 2.5. Sometimes I go up to 3, but it really depends on the narrator and how much info I really have to take in. If the book is really dense and filled with a lot of little details, then I will normally stay around 2.5 or 2. So that is like the speed I like to listen, but once again, really depends on the narrator. How do I stay focused is interesting. So I typically listen to audiobooks when I'm driving. I have over an hour commute both ways. So that is how I get the majority of my reading done. But I also have a second job where I do indexing, and that is just busy work where I'm just putting numbers into a computer, and I'm able to listen to my audiobook while I do that, and it kind of keeps me occupied. I am one of those people that I cannot just sit and listen to an audiobook. My mind will go in 9 different directions. So typically, if that is the case, if I have no indexing to do or no cleaning to do or I'm not driving, I will actually listen to the audiobook while reading on my Kindle. It is the only way I will stay focused. I can't just sit on the couch and listen to an audiobook. And I know that's actually pretty common with a lot of different people. And the reason I don't read books physically is just I am a pretty slow reader. I talked about this in other videos, but I have dyslexia. It just makes my reading super, super slow. It also makes my spelling absolutely atrocious. So that is why I listen to audiobooks primarily. And I typically can go through between 12 to 20 audiobooks a month. And obviously that depends on my work schedule. So during the winter, way less. And then over the summer, my hours are greatly reduced. So I normally can read more like 20 to 30 books a month. So it kind of all goes from there. But yeah, I absolutely love audiobooks. They have changed my life for the better. And I think they are just a great way to read more. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions regarding audiobooks, please leave them down in the comments below and I will make sure to answer as soon as possible. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.